Hello, Void. So, I mentioned in my last video for Shudder, the original OG Thai film, that I would be covering the American remake. No time like the present. Let's get it done. Shudder. Okay, so first off, I may have telegraphed that in the last video that this movie is not very good. Well, it isn't terrible by any means. It's no American One Missed Call or anything, don't get me wrong. But this is definitely where the quality started going downhill. This one's 2008. So Ring and The Grudge definitely started off on a higher note, but things after that started slowly going downhill. The Uninvited wasn't bad, but it had a lot to live up to. Shutter was okay, and then One Missed Call was just bad. The Eye was another one that was just okay. So this is where we're definitely losing quality. Oh, Pulse also is. I liked Pulse, but it definitely missed the mark on the original. So anyone who hasn't seen the original might like it, but that was another one. I think those are all the mainstay ones. I own all of them. I'll get to all of them at some point. Well, Shudder. Now, this one's a little perplexing to me, and there's something I couldn't figure out for the longest time, but I finally got the answer to. So, the Shudder originally was a Thai film. So, this film has Jane, same name, and Ben moving to Japan because Ben had studied there before, or had some connections there, and he's joining doing photography for a big company in Japan. Japan, not Thailand, Japan. And I was wondering why that was. I could not, for the life of me, figure out why they switched it from Thailand to Japan. My first thought was most of the horror films that were coming from Japan, so maybe they're just trying to keep that familiarity. But I did happen upon an answer finally. Well, they have a Japanese director who was more comfortable filming in Japan and just, rather than flying out to America, flew the American cast out to film with him in Japan. So, I guess it was just the director they chose being stubborn. Weird. Now, I already went over the plot in my last video for Shudder, and this one is largely the same. It keeps pretty much the same notes. Other than and then this one does kind of omit the whole new married friends angle and more works for just him hanging out with his coworkers. But she does seem then so Jane and Ben again hit girl while driving. After that, seems to be being stalked by ghosts through photography. And however, in this one, the ghost seems a lot more obsessive rather than vengeful. The ghost in Shudder just seemed very angry looking, and this one she seems to be more out to definitely seduce Ben rather than anything else. But largely, we hit a lot of the same notes, and it's just not done with the same aplomb that the Thailand version had. This one's not bad by any means, but it doesn't add enough to separate itself, really. I mean, changing the locale to Japan, maybe they could have, but then they do add a few little things, like going to a Japanese medium to try to figure out what's the deal with these spirit photos, and he just yells at them in Japanese, which I speak a little Japanese, so I could understand some of it. But so seeing the one character who does understand what he's saying freak out while Jane, who's our lead, not still left in the dark, that just seemed to add those things. So there are little touches here that do help, which stop this one from being just bad, and keeping it just okay. So for me, Shudder here. And I don't know if I actually dropped a MacGuffin review for the other Shudder, but for me, Shudder's an 8. This one's a 5. It's the best I can do really on this one. I mean, if they did a little bit more with the whole location change. Maybe they could have done something with it. But the big scenes that were terrifying in the OG Shutter just don't translate as much in this one. I think it largely comes down to the ghost design. This one, the ghost looks too pretty. The other one, she was horrifying looking. This one, she just looks like a beautiful ghost that occasionally has some rotting bits that seem to come and go when she needs to be scarier. But otherwise, yeah, it's clear she's a decomposing corpse, but she's a pretty one that's trying out to seduce Ben. So, and that takes away a lot of the horror because the ghost is just pretty. It did not have the eyes of the other one. Whew. No. So, this one lacks. Otherwise, we hit the same notes, just with less pizzazz. So, if you have to choose between Shutters, go the OG one. This one isn't bad, but for me, it's better to serve as a curiosity as a kind of a double feature, which is kind of what I did, because I remembered kind of having the same feelings years ago when I first watched the American remake. Yeah. So, very good, average. Okay, that's all on that one. Not sure if how many more I'm gonna keep going for today, if any, but see you in a while, Void.